Good evening, everyone. Can I have a call to order, please? I'll start the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise.
Yeah.
Please begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Vera Papa.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deaton.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Sistarsik. Councilmember Maslavic.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. At this time, we'll do the approval of agenda and waiver of full readings of resolution ordinances. By motion of the City Council, this is the time to notify the public of any changes to the agenda and/or rearrange the order of the agenda. Do we have any changes at this time? Looking to my right, I see none. Mr. Moore, do you have any changes? Looking to my left, I see none. Okay, none. We will move on to the presentations. Our first one will be by Mr. Ted Stevens.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Oh.
can we just get a motion to approve the agenda,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Please vote. Passes 5-0. Okay, we'll have Animal Care Service Manager Ted Stevens, who will have a PowerPoint presentation on the latest information. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor and Honorable Mayor and Council members and City staff, thank you for inviting me out tonight to just kind of give a brief update on where we are with our enforcement with some of the issues with dogs on the beach. So I've just got a little update for you on that. Okay, well, just for the record, I'm Ted Stevens. I'm Manager of Animal Care Services. Just to talk a little bit about public safety, Seal Beach has a municipal code, 9.05.090, saying that dogs are prohibited on the beach and the pier. So this is a current sign. I kind of drove around the city a couple weeks ago, took some pictures, and you'll see why in a little bit. And just looking at kind of the signs, and you can kind of see it does say no dogs, but it's very small and it's kind of jumbled in with a lot of other things that are not allowed on the beaches and the piers. So like I said, I'll get into that a little bit more on why I shared that picture. So just to start off, there's a lot of enforcement challenges when we're talking about dogs on the beach and even just dogs off leash, and that's limited resources. We have one officer for 3 hours a day coming into Seal Beach, and that's for all animal control calls related to the city, not just the beach patrols. And limited resources in the fact that the beach is not small; it's quite large. There's at least 16 access points that I counted, where people can actually access the beach from houses, from streets, just streets coming through. I think I counted 16 when I was looking through there. As I stated before, the poor signage. I kind of showed you one of those. You have tourists coming from other cities.
Stay there because you don't want to go pay to go over to Santa Ana. And they don't pay for everything that they get. The taxpayers have to pay that. Why don't you do that? Close it down. It was closed for a couple of years. Then, why don't you ask, at Sunset Aquatic Park, why don't you ask the supervisors for more money? It's on the land. It's on Seal Beach land. Why don't you ask for more money? They are getting a huge amount of money from the boats, storage, and then you've got the where they work on boats. I mean, this is not the taxpayers' fault. It's the way the cities run. And it comes from each one of you that get elected to represent your districts. And it's not right. When in 2015, remember those flyers that I saved? when the city manager put these out, before we could find out about it, the taxpayers had to pay for that. Now the supervisors got in trouble for doing the same thing. I'm not sure you can do that again. But I suggested at times she retire. Get out of here. Where's the 5 previous mayors to come here? 2 from College Park East. Where are they? They told her also. They told all of you. She needs to go. When the 215 storm came, what happened? Seaway flooded, Bridgeport flooded. It cost a lot of money. There was no sand brought in, but there was sand brought in for Surfside for $1 million. I think that's what the sand cost. But what did we get? We got dirt. Okay, then the next thing after that was the pier. It had been closed. There was a person that wanted to open up a restaurant out there, but she got somebody to bid against her. So she quit. So that pier sat out there vacant, and the fire department told the city council, you need to put a new water line out there. They didn't do it, so what happened? Caught on fire. How did it catch on fire? Well, we don't know yet.
You have 10 seconds.
And how about the food costs? Here we are. We're back to having food. Lots of food. How do you feel about
You're
that?
tired up.
Mayor Bill-Proper? You don't go to Walt's Wharf to have an interview for a job. Come on. You don't go to Walt's Wharf to interview for a job. Well, it's much
Thank
more,
you.
but as usual, 5 minutes is not enough.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the oral communication and go to the city attorney report.
Yes, Mayor, no report tonight. I just want to say hi to some familiar faces and friends. It's always good to come back.
Thank you. City manager report.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I have a couple items tonight I'd like to call forward. Sergeant Mike Henderson, as all of you know, we've embarked on our hazard mitigation plan process, which is going to kick off tomorrow night with our first public meeting. So I just, for the public's benefit as well as the council, asked him just to give a quick update. Mike?
Thank you, City Manager, and good evening, City Council members and City staff. Thank you. Yes, tomorrow night will be our first public outreach meeting for our local hazard mitigation plan. It will be here in the City Council chambers from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We have 2 more meetings planned after that. The second meeting will be June 27th at Clubhouse 4 in Leisure World for the benefit of our Leisure World residents. And then the third meeting will be September 5th from 6 to 8 at the Marina Community Center. So those are our public outreach meetings. If you cannot come to any of the public outreach meetings, there is a survey that you can take online. If you go to the City of Seal Beach website, and on the home page there's a tab that says Hazard Mitigation. You can click on that and take the survey and participate in that way. I spoke to the contractor who's writing the plan today, and we have about 150 folks who have already taken the survey. So please, I encourage everyone to participate. For the members in our audience who may be asking, what the heck is a local hazard mitigation plan? Just real briefly, it's part of our emergency planning for the City of Seal Beach. Last year, we finished our emergency operations plan update, and this plan will give us access to some funding opportunities to mitigate hazards that may already be existing throughout the city. For example, the City of Huntington Beach obtained a grant to retrofit their government buildings for earthquake preparedness, things like that. And if you take the survey, it gives you an opportunity to participate and identify the things you think are important to the city and things that may be potential hazards. And then after the plan is formulated and approved, we'll give the city an opportunity to seek out some funding opportunities. So with that, that's my report. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? Councilwoman Sosarczyk?
Are all three of these meetings the same meeting, or?
They essentially will be the same meeting. It'll be an explanation of what the plan is. But for example, tomorrow night, our contractor will be bringing large maps of the city. We'll be identifying critical facilities throughout the city and perhaps identifying some other hazards to the city. But yes, essentially, they will be the same meeting. So and if you can attend any one of the meetings, that would be sufficient.
Okay. Also, is this plan is supported by a grant?
It is. So a couple of years ago, the cities applied for and successfully received a grant from FEMA to write the plan. And that's essentially what we're doing now. We went through an RFP process, selected a vendor, a contractor, who's helping us write this plan. It's a very specific kind of government document that FEMA requires. And so we did receive a grant. The city is matching some of that grant with in-kind contributions of city staff time. We had our first committee meeting, and all the department heads attended and contributed to giving some direction to the plan. And so once this plan is completed, then we'll submit it to FEMA.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one question. In College Park West, there's the one bridge that goes in and out.
Yes.
Can that be included in the plan?
Absolutely. In fact, that was already identified. The bridges, all the bridges going in and out of the city have been identified as critical structures to the city, and will be a part of the plan. But I encourage you and everyone else to go to the website, take that survey, and give your thoughts and concerns about those types of structures so that it does get integrated into the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sergeant Henderson. Second item I have tonight is some really exciting news for us. The city did issue a press release today, and once again, the city's received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association for our comprehensive annual financial report that ended last fiscal year. Hopefully by now the council knows, since we receive this recognition nearly every year, that the Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment. I can't emphasize enough the great amount of work that goes into this effort, not only just satisfying the high standards of the program in order to qualify for the recognition, but all the work that goes into maintaining the recognition once it's received. And so I'd like to formally thank and commend our Finance Director, Vicki Beatley, for her leadership with her team in this effort, as well as Elena Hong, our Finance Manager, who's in the back as well, for the effort on this. And thanks again. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you. We'll go to city council comments. Starting on my right.
I have nothing to report.
Nothing. Councilmember Starsky.
In the last month since our regular meeting, I attended the OCTA open house for the 605 Catella interchange project. It was interesting, the options that are offered for upgrading that interchange. I attended the Public Safety Awards put on by the Seal Beach Police Foundation. Very interesting meeting. 2 Fire Services Committee meetings. A recognition for our city clerks, municipal clerks. A recognition for Public Works Public Service Week. I attended the Memorial Day ceremony at Eisenhower Park, and a regional military affairs meeting at Joint Forces Training Base. This one was, they had a speaker talking about the MedFly program over there. They have a sterile fruit fly emergency and release facility that's put supported by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the California Department of Food and Agriculture, where they import pupae from Hawaii and Guatemala and release them every couple weeks in our area to keep the medfly from becoming a problem in California. They also ship the flies out to problems where there are infestations. I think right now they said Half Moon Bay, San Diego, so they're flying them out there routinely. And they put the little traps around in the neighborhoods. You may have seen them in your neighborhood. So they monitor, I guess one of them, the little triangle ones, monitor for the coverage of the male flies that are out there, because they have to put a lot out there to make sure that the females are all, taken up with the sterile males. And then they have some other traps where they just try to see what they can get, because also the Mexican fruit fly can also be a problem. So I guess there's another facility like this in Florida and the Mexican fruit flies in Texas. But we do, our base here covers a lot of California and does a lot of work in addition to all the other jobs that it does over there. So that was very interesting, and thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McGeeton?
Yeah, a few things. I'd like to thank the Lions and Grace Church and the Methodist Church and anyone else that was involved in putting on the Memorial Day service. It was very lovely, and you did a nice job, Mayor, addressing it. And I wanted to talk just for a moment about the farmers market. It's not agendized, so we can't really discuss it. But it's my understanding that it came forward from the merchants on Main and not from the city. As far as notice is concerned, notice was given last week in the Sun newspaper. This is the period of noticing, and we are in a 10-day notice period right now. It is also my understanding that the application is for a 90-day permit. So therefore, it automatically expires at the end of 90 days if not continued. At least that's my understanding. And that's my understanding. And finally, I want to thank those who put the polls in, because those were very helpful to me. There was one on Facebook, and there was one on Nextdoor.com, which had quite a few respondees, 187, I think, and at least 70% were in favor of the farmers market. So that was, when I first got on the city council, we didn't have all that social media, and really was very difficult to know how the community felt. So that was really helpful. Thank you for doing that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was when we talked about the budget last week, it was quite dismal. And one of the things that we know is that we're going to have to withdraw some of the special event funding that we've been doing. And I would like to ask the city manager if she would hold a community stakeholders meeting so that we can discuss how best to go about this, which events we should cover. Perhaps it's just a flat percentage from all of them. But I would like to have a community meeting of stakeholders so that the community can help us with this decision. We all received a letter. I don't know if it's on our dais today or not, from Mr. Goldberg, and he noted that Run Seal Beach nets $100,000 and wanted to know if we got our reimbursements from them. So I did a little work today to figure out. We pay under $10,000 to Run Seal Beach to have it do our run. We received $12,000 in cash back from them because they always donate back. That was to the city itself. It was to lifeguards and PD. But the most impressive thing was $63,000 to our kids in the Los Alameda School District. So I think we get back more, certainly more than what we have put in. Anyone that wants to see how Run Seal Beach spends their money, there's a full transparent spreadsheet on their website, runsealbeach.com. The other thing I wanted to say is that Councilman Moore and I just came this evening from a homeless meeting. I want to thank our police officers, especially Sergeant Sergeant Mike Henderson, for going with us tonight, along with Brian Gray, our homeless liaison officers. We met with Long Beach. We're trying to put together, working together even more tightly. I have to say I was really impressed. They all knew each other first name and talked about all the different projects they'd been out on. And we're trying to form a real synergistic union, meaning that by all of us working together, we're going to get a lot more done than we would have done apart. So thank you for that. I thought it was a good meeting, and hopefully we came away with some good action points. I probably have a whole lot more to say, but we'll save it. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore?
And enjoyed seeing a lot of residents at the Edison Garden cleanup, and it's nice to see residents from all over Seal Beach at the Edison Garden. Again, I'd like to mention just one thing about the budget meetings last week. I think the staff really dug deep and got expenses and revenue from each department to see what they could do to help the city, and I really appreciate that. I enjoyed going to the homelessness meeting with Ellery, and I think there's a really a great start working together with Long Beach closely to address the homelessness in our area. And also I went to the fire committee meetings. I'd like to thank everyone that was on the fire committee. I think they really worked hard and spent a lot of hours looking at everything, so I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I was able to attend the Memorial Day ceremony in town. I want to apologize for not making the submarine memorial services. Logistics didn't work out, but the one in town was a very moving event. Someone had the idea of having some of the audience members stand up and give names of people they know personally or family members that have deceased in previous wars or now as veterans. And it was pretty moving. It was kind of nice to get the involvement from the community and just kind of hear the names and take a second to basically appreciate, you know, the services that they do. And I think it's an important event. So I want to thank the vets and the families and all the residents and volunteers that attended. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to the consent calendar. We had no items pulled at this time. Do we want
I'd like to move it,
make
please.
a motion? Second? Is there a second for the consent calendar?
Second.
Please vote. That would be items B through K. That passes 5-0. There are no items removed. There's no public hearing, unfinished business, new business. Any other things?
Yeah, so we just have one item. It's item A under council items, just our monthly strategic plan
Go
review.
ahead. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So as the council knows, once a month, we come before you with a update on our 6-month objectives. So just like to go through and highlight a couple of those tonight. On page A, in attachment A, in terms of renovation of the city's First Street restaurant building, as you will note, we've revised the status on that one from on target by June 1st to revised and ongoing discussions with the lessee. Their opening date is now to be determined based on, again, ongoing discussions with their architect and team along with the city team. So that one has been revised, and once we get a date from the lessee, we'll update our strategic plan objective with that. As you will note on page B, in terms of direction from the city council or to the city council and options for potential new revenue sources, obviously we got consensus and direction from the council last week as part of the budget planning process, but in particular this one is involving the Fire Services Ad Hoc Committee, and as those of you know, many of the council members were in attendance at that last committee meeting last Monday night. We will be bringing the committee's recommendation to you anticipated at the next council meeting on June 11th with their recommendation So as you'll note on page B, the status from on target by June 1st has now been revised pending on that recommendation moving forward to council. Page C, as you know, item number 2, in terms of recommending the award of a citywide landscape maintenance contract. We anticipated being on target with that by coming to you by June 11th, and we beat that requirement and had it. It's on your agenda for tonight on consent calendar, which you just approved. So thank you for that. Page D, a couple items I want to just highlight here on number 2 on terms of hiring a new community development director. As you will note on status, we've changed that from on target to revised based on discussions that we had with the council last week, and staff's recommending deletion of this objective at this time as a cost-saving measure for next year's fiscal year budget. Likewise, item number 5, in terms of presenting to the council a financial analysis of the class and comp study, again, changing the status from on target by September 1st to staff's recommendation that we revise that, delete this objective from the strategic plan at this time as a cost-saving measure. Staff's recommendation that we don't spend any additional funds on this effort at this time, given our budget deficit, nor will staff have the ability to conduct this analysis internally by that date. Does it mean that we're not going to continue to work on this effort? Absolutely not. What it means is once we come back at our next strategic planning meeting, which will be held on September 12th, as we always do, we'll review the 6-month objectives in terms of what we've accomplished. And if, in fact, at that time, the council still wants to look at that, given our situation, then we can discuss it. As all of you know from the budget meetings last week, staff did make a recommendation in terms of a cost-saving measure that we not hire a consultant to facilitate our strategic planning meeting. Does that mean we're doing anything different in terms of not embracing this project? Because all of you know is that the council and staff has embraced this effort, and it's significant in terms of what it does for our city in terms of long-term planning. We use it as a guide to draft our budget every year. So I want to make it clear, it's not staff's intent just because we presented a cost-saving measure to not hire a facilitator to come in and hold those meetings. Has no bearing whatsoever in terms of this process and what this document means. We're still, over the next couple months, we'll look at some different options in terms of how we'll facilitate those meetings. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Any questions for the city manager? I had a couple. In item A, with the restaurant, just for clarity, do we do the work first, or they do the work first, or we do it concurrently? I'm kind of not.
So
I know they have work to do, we have work to do.
So I know what my understanding is, which is the city has work to do in terms of what our responsibility is on the building because we own the building, and the effort in trying to coordinate with the lessee so that we're not duplicating efforts. But what I'd like to do is just ask Crystal Landavazo, our interim community development director, since she's been working and representing the city on these meetings with the lessee, for a current update. Crystal?
Good afternoon. City Manager Ingram was correct. We are coordinating currently with the new tenant to ensure that there isn't a duplication of effort. So right now there are certain items that the lease identified that the city is responsible for. The recenter after the air conditioning and a couple other items that Mr. Miner is much more familiar with, but there has been coordination to make sure that whatever items we're responsible for, we'll take care of either ahead of time or we'll provide the material for. I believe the roof was one of the items. So we're going to provide the material, and then their contractor will complete the work so that there isn't a duplication. We're not putting something in that they're going to take out as part of their...
And we're not delaying their work.
Absolutely not. We are in coordination right now, making sure that they have plans and that our schedule is going to work within that.
Okay. Thank you. And then on item D, that you talked about earlier, the city council, my understanding, did not direct the staff to implement the findings of the 2017 classification and compensation study.
I'm sorry, what page?
D.
What was your
Item
question?
D, the city council, it's my understanding, did not direct the staff to implement the findings in that class and comp study, right? They did not.
That's correct. So what happened back in November of last year, I believe, the council was presented with the findings of the classification and compensation study, and you received and filed the report and did not provide any direction to staff.
So the recommended pay raises identified in the study and highlighted in the email that we got, I believe earlier, are not being implemented as part of the 2018-19 budget?
Absolutely not.
And then we can still evaluate all the items, whether they're deleted or not deleted, as part of this.
Absolutely. So as the council knows, typically at the beginning of that strategic planning meeting, the first part of it, we do a SWOT analysis. We talk about staff's accomplishments over the previous 6 months, review the objectives and whether or not they are still a priority. If they, in this case, if they've been deleted, and as I indicated, it doesn't mean we're deleting it because it's gone forever. It just means in this particular case, based on discussions we had last week at the budget meeting and cost containment measures, they're not applicable. And as I indicated on the one item in terms of the financial analysis, staff feels it wouldn't be prudent to spend money in order to do the financial analysis, to bring someone in to do it and to do it right, that has time to do it and spend time on that effort, would not be prudent for us at this time. And the other piece of that would be, then that would be require staff to spend staff time on an analysis, and there's no way we could conclude that before September 1st. Okay. But I want to make it sure that I'm clear. I'm not saying the class and comp study is not an important document. It absolutely is. And as all of you know, it's a planning tool for us in the future. What I'm saying is, at least in terms of this particular effort and the timing of it, we're recommending that it be deleted from the strategic plan. It's going to need to be done at some point in time based on the effort. And again, it's a significantly important effort in terms of ongoing discussions with our labor groups and in terms of the council's desire to attract and retain quality employees. It's just in terms of the timing, it's not prudent for us to move forward at this point. At least that's my recommendation.
Any questions?
I'd like to bounce off of that. Talking about the class and comp, tonight we had a speaker give us a data per capita on salaries and so forth and so on. I think it would be a really good time to discuss what instruments we use, how we arrive at things. And the class and comp study is actually, I think, the core of that. And, what a large city would have, what a small city would have, what your baseline is. So I think all of that will come out. Will we be discussing this at the strategic planning meeting, or is that pushed out further than that? The class and comp study.
The council just received and filed the report, and we haven't been given any further direction. But I think it's important to note this isn't the only tool that we use. As we talked about during the entire process as we were going through this with the consultant, that this is just one of several documents and tools that we use in terms of analyzing compensation and classification data.
Right, and I think that's my point, is that you do have this graph, which is data per capita, which is another tool, and you have a class and comp study, which is another tool. So there's a lot that goes into salaries, not just one tool.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I know it's probably pointless to leave this in on the list because it may be 2 or 3 years before we look at it again. But I don't know if it would be on a separate sheet that would say items deleted from our strategic planning and delayed, so that we can keep an eye on it and know that whatever gets deleted from the list, doesn't matter what it is, that we still have an eye on it and we still have the opportunity to talk about it when it's appropriate.
I would agree. We can easily do that.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Just a brief update on the IT software working group. Is there any progress with that?
Which page are you on?
Attachment A.
What's the letter of the
C.
page?
C.
Oh. Oh, C. Item number 3 and 7.
Yeah, so that one's on target in terms of staff presenting to me as the city manager, the findings of the working group by July 15th, and so we'll be coming to you shortly with a full update on that, unless it gets done sooner, and I'm happy to address it at that time.
Okay.
Unless, Patrick, is there anything you feel comfortable with talking about at this point? Otherwise, we can address it next month.
City Manager Ingram and Councilmember Moore, we are on target. We've been meeting several times to discuss several software options and looking at new technologies in light of our budget condition. Some of that's going to be just thought of and not implemented, but we'll definitely come back before July to talk about those things.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Since we already did the consent calendar, we'll just adjourn the meeting to Monday, June 11th at 5:30 p.m. to meet in closed session if deemed necessary. We do have closed session immediately following tonight. Thank you.